Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hey.
Hi there. Salutations.
In solitude. Welcome.
Highly uncircumcised.
Yes, welcome to that.
Mike and Nicole.
We promise to be a little more together in this episode,
focused,
even though right before we started, we just fell out. So we're going to do our best to have a deep discussion. Because
should we tell them why we were so unfocused right before we came in this?
No. We are going to talk right now about gender. And the reason is because I have heard that Caitlyn Jenner is throwing her hat in the ring for mayor. You tell me because yes, I don't know this. So go ahead and tell me.
So Caitlyn Jenner, formerly known as Bruce Jenner, is running for California governor in this recall of Gavin Newsom, which I don't think is going to be successful, but that's neither here nor there right now. Anyway, she was asked a question by a reporter regarding transgender girls performing against other girls in sports, right? So it was just sort of a hot button issue, and a lot of people, chimed in, and probably some are just upset by her take on it. I actually am kind of surprised by her take, just because.
So what was her take?
Well, her take was that it's completely unfair for transgender girls, meaning those who were born male and then transitioned to female.
She's officially transgender, right?
Yeah, she had the operation, so she's fully, she's fully female now. But anyway, those who are fully transitioned from male to female, competing against other females in sport. I guess we're without regard to whatever level we're at, meaning like high school, college, professional, Olympic stuff. So I thought that was first of all, it's just a very interesting topic, but secondly, I just thought that was a very interesting take coming from someone who just made the transition. I would think she would be like just a proponent of all things, transgender, like you can do whatever you want to do. So it was a surprising response from her for me.
Do you think that she thinks that way because she was actually a professional athlete as a man, wasn't she?
Right. So, well, yeah, considered one of like the greatest Olympians ever.
Do you think she thinks that way because I want to say because she knows it would be unfair, but that's my bias saying she knows it would be unfair for her to now go run against women, understanding that men have how many seconds faster time?
Yeah, I mean, definitely men, especially if you're referring to Olympic events, like let's just go with track and field, men are always substantially faster, when it comes to track events than females. And that's obviously biology, superiority, a biological superiority. I mean, men are bigger, faster, stronger. I mean, it just is what it is. So anyway, to answer your question, I suppose that's why she sort of feels strongly in one direction. But doesn't that also bring up another issue, which would be, how do you create an environment that is fair for them to compete? So are we now saying that those who transition just basically have no right to compete in any sort of athletics, high school, college, professional, Olympic? Because the boys who or the men or males that transition into female have an advantage if they're still, biologically stronger, bigger, faster, stronger. But those who transition into male would be at disadvantage. So then they just may not be able to compete just because they may not be selected by the powers that be to perform or play on some team because they're just not good enough. So to me, that sort of broaches a lot of different topics. Like,
yeah, it's a super wide and broad debate, and it just, to me, when I saw the picture of the girl, the UFC fighter's face when she lost to the transgender. Okay, I don't know how this works. When they were a man and become a girl, do they call him a transgender girl or do they call him a transgender man?
I thought I'm so not an expert on any of this, but I thought transgender is just an umbrella for those human beings who are transitioning from one sex to the other.
Okay, so then
regardless of which direction you're going, you're still a transgender individual. But I could be wrong about that. Honestly, I'm not 100% on that.
Okay, so forgive me for not understanding the lingo or knowing it, but in that UFC fight, or I'm sure there's been multiple, but the most recent one, which was a couple weeks ago, where the woman, they have pictures of the girl's face, and it's like literally like bludgeoned, it looks like. Her opponent used to be a man, right? Mm. And so I think that's what's kind of forcing this issue, right? Like, clearly we want to say like we are equal, men and women, and yes we are, but clearly there's biological differences, body mass differences, there's body fat differences, there's and men have much higher strength percentages. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the easiest illustration would be what you're probably what, like 5'7", somewhere in there, 5'6",
yeah, almost 5'6.5", yeah.
So I'm just gonna, you don't even have to say, but I'm just gonna guess your weight is probably about 130 pounds, something like that. A 5'6.5", 130-pound man still probably would be able to beat the crap out of you.
Oh, right? He beat my ass, like, for sure.
So just because you're even the same height and weight, he's still, except for Ryan Feldman, I'll
beat his ass so bad.
Shout out to Ryan Feldman. He's still going to be physically superior to you. So in that direction.
But no, okay, right? When you say physically superior, I think this is where
physically dominant is.
But even I felt, even though I know it's true, like understanding what is true is hard to accept sometimes, because it is true. Like, we want to say we are equal. We are equal as human beings. We're all beings, but we're all different. And what is specifically different about the genders, male and female, is that biologically men have had stronger capabilities than women. So they can, over the long haul, most of them, not all of them, can run faster. They can hit harder. So it does seem to me like when you get into these professional rings, like, and now they can run races with the women, and now you can go and punch a woman out in UFC. Like, to me, it's like, oh God, I don't know how I'd feel if I was the woman. And I think most women, to be fair, are trying to be very fair about it, who are running the sport, right? They're not trying to say anything. It's everybody else trying to say things, right? But it is tough, because especially if you think that, women who transition into men are not jumping into the UFC ring with men, right? So a woman who was born a woman transitions into a man. Is there any that are fighting in the UFC ring?
Well, first of all, I'm not a huge UFC person, so it's not like I could give you all the information on UFC. But I will say that I can't recall hearing about one female to male transition that has been an active UFC fighter.
Is there any female to male transition running track?
No, can't think of any of those.
So that's where the disparity is, I think. And is it fair? No. But I will tell you, like, what I tell my kids all the time is like, who said life's fair? Like, that's like, we yell this fairness, like, and that stops us from really getting into how do we try to fix this. Like, instead of spending all the time saying this isn't fair, like, well, then let's figure it out. But yelling and
I
shouting
think
is
that,
not fair is like, yeah, I mean, but what are you going to do? Like this is nothing we've ever dealt with before.
I hear you, but I think the spirit in which you're telling your kids, and I'm sure I'd say something similar to my own, that life is not always going to be fair. The spirit of that is much different than I am 6'5" and 265 pounds. I am a large man, period, right? I'm larger than the average man. So what if one day I decided I'm going to transition and become female, and then I decide I want to fight in UFC as a female, right? I don't think that's a, hey, life's not fair situation. You just got to go in there and try and fight this 6'5", 265-pound female. I mean, that's not. We still have to do our best to make a level playing field.
And to be fair, I was
life.
saying we're coming at the debate not from the woman fighting, is like from the transgender side transitioning. That to them it's not fair, and I sympathize, but it's, to me, it's like when I saw her face, I was like, oh my God, and how, like, literally, I don't think she said one thing about it, right? That she had to fight a man, that she had, but
so that's, I'll tell you why I think the UFC is a bad example for this particular conversation, because UFC is a solo sport, right? It's just you getting in the ring. It's not a basketball team, a football team, baseball team. It's just you getting in the ring with somebody else. So both of those people have to sign off on fighting the other person, right? So it's not like the Lakers can say, I'm not going to play the Clippers. No, the Clippers are on your schedule and you have to play them as long as you're a member of the NBA. But as a UFC fighter, you can, or a boxer, you can say like, no, I'm not fighting this person.
Yeah, but you can say that, but that's, that's how you make your money. And so like, oh, this is
what
the fight
I'm
you
saying
got
is
is
right. I get it. But what I'm saying is the person that says I'm going to fight the person knowing that person is a transgender male to female, you already know what you're in for. So you've signed up for that. So to me, in my mind, that's why UFC would be kind of a bad example for this.
But what about track? Track's individual too.
That's perfect, right? So for track, for instance, they just had the trials this weekend for the Tokyo Olympics in this summer, right? Who's going to be able to go and represent the United States. So I, as a 100-meter runner, as a female 100-meter runner, I can't decide who I'm running against. Whoever's qualified for that particular race is going to get in that race, and that's all governed by the United States Olympic Committee. Mm-hmm. So it's not like me, Michael Moore, the boxer. Hey, I don't want to fight Mike Tyson, so guess what? I ain't fighting Mike Tyson. I'll fight everybody else but Mike Tyson for the money, right? No, track and field people, you just got to get out there and compete with whoever's qualified to compete against you, and that's where, in my mind, the unfairness of it can come into play.
Okay, so let's get back to originally you said all this came up because Caitlyn Jenner. I would, and I'm sure there's a lot of, again, people that are saying unfair are probably the transgender people saying, how can you say that? You're transgender. This is unfair, right? But because we've never been there, we don't understand. We don't wouldn't we want to divert to his knowledge, to what he thinks, or she thinks now, opinions about the subject? And she was literally born a man, was an Olympian, and has become a woman, fully woman. This is what she thinks about this. She's clearly intelligent. She's done a lot with his or her life. Like, wouldn't we then divert to her knowledge?
I don't see why Caitlyn Jenner transitioning from a man to a woman makes her any more qualified.
She's done it. She's lived it.
I don't see why it makes her any more qualified to understand the fairness or unfairness than you or I.
Why not? She's had to live it. You think she hasn't?
I've been an athlete. I could tell you what it's like to be against people who are physically superior to me, and that I
okay. Great. So I'm just saying, like, we can decide as people, but clearly we're divided. So to me, I would falter with, probably what she's saying is correct. I mean, she literally lives it. If she is saying that this is unfair, then probably in some way that this is unfair. And then we have to find a way to develop something else, right? Like, because the idea to me, like, so are they allowing transgender? Well, by the way, I'm sure people are going to be super upset about this, but like, I don't personally believe that they should, as adults. Now, again, no, this is different with kids. This is the hard part, I think, where this debate comes in, is that if you have a little child who is 8, who is transgender, I mean, at that age, you're all the same. It doesn't matter. Like, go ahead, all play sports together. Like, do your thing. Have a great time.
No, you're not the same. Even at that age, no.
At 8?
No way.
Oh yeah,
No
at
way.
8, you're
No,
my
no
9
way.
and 7-year-old are a boy and a girl. You can't tell which one's which. Like, not kidding. Like, before puberty, like, I don't care. Do your thing. But that's
9-year-old and 8-year-old boys are still physically dominant over 9 and 8-year-old girls, for sure.
Not
I would say
girl.
the age would have to be much younger. Like for instance, did your kids play soccer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then you notice after, the under 5, the 5 and under division, after they start separating them, the games and the caliber of play are much different. Mm-hmm. I would say once you get above about 5 years old, that's when the physical division begins to really start happening in terms of who's dominant and who's not. So anyway, I just disagree with you on that. I don't think 8 or 9 is much older than that line of delineation.
So then I guess what do we do? Do we do what you're saying? Is it have a whole separate transgender?
If that was possible, that I think that wouldn't be a horrible idea, except I just think the percentage of transgender, what was that? Did you hear that? Can I say something?
Say something.
Oh, okay. No, I thought I just lost you. I just don't think there's literally enough transgender people to start anything like that. I mean, you probably have like 10 people competing against, each other for something. I mean, it's not obviously not that low, but I'm just saying, if there's 100 transgender people right now in just California, then probably 5 of them are competitive athletes, right? So just like if you look at the population of the United States, there's 350 million people, let's say, like what's the percentage of people who are actually competitive athletes? It's probably like 2% or something like that, right? It just happens to be a much higher number. So you can create stuff like soccer and basketball and all these kind of leagues because there's enough people to participate. I don't think that there'd be enough people to participate in any sort of transgender league. So then that once again brings you back to, but you can't deny people the right to get out and physically compete at whatever their particular sport of choice is, whether it's wrestling or basketball, baseball, soccer, hockey, whatever, right?
But you can literally deny a man from competing with women, but if he becomes a woman, even though he's still biologically a man underneath, he can compete. So you're saying you cannot deny someone, but we do, right? We separate them and we enforce the separation.
Okay, go ahead.
That's it.
Go ahead. Oh, so let me give you this example and you give me your take on this, because this is actually a real life example. This is not hypothetical or anything. There's a runner in South Africa, and I can't remember her name. She's South African. She is very sort of masculine in appearance. Outside of her hair, she has long hair, and it probably does that to kind of give her a feminine sort of look. But if she were to shave her head, you couldn't really tell if this was a man or woman. I mean, and this is just real talk. She was out there crushing everybody in track. I mean, she was crushing them. Like, she never had a close race ever. And I really wish I could remember her name, because this is literally in the last couple of years she's been around, and those listening probably know exactly who I'm talking about. They started actually doing tests on her because everyone started complaining, basically saying this is a man competing with women. And I felt so bad for her, because they started testing her blood and started testing all of her body tissues and all this kind of stuff to see if she was, transitioning with hormones and all this kind of stuff. And they came back and conclusively said, this is a woman. this is a woman. She's not a man. And people were trying to say this is a man. What about her?
Okay, this is perfect because this is going to wrap it all up for us for now. Is we are going to wrap it up with how we started this conversation on the poker table. And we talked about this a lot. This is another 8-hour discussion at the poker table. And at the end of the day, the thing is that we have this idea, or we have up until now, that gender is black and white, right? It's like you're a woman and you're a man, and that's it. There's this and there's this. And what we are coming to realize is that it's a spectrum. Like gender is a spectrum. There's like, there's over here and there's over here and there's this whole space, all of it, right? And we're all in it. And then I told this joke. I'm going to tell this joke to everybody, Mike. Okay. So listen, if gender is a spectrum, let me tell it real quick. Gender is a spectrum, and like the woman, princess, girly girl, it's all the way. You can't even see the end of my hand, but it's all the way over there, right? And then like the man, like wears the flannels and he shoots a gun and he chops the wood, right? He's all the way over there, right? And this is a spectrum. And I was like, and so I would be, because in the poker world, I'm kind of like a dude. I'm like, I would be like right here, like kind of in the middle, a little bit into the female side, just like right in the middle, right? And then I looked at Mike and I would be like, and so would you. Right there, just kind of in the middle, a little bit on the female side. So that's how we ended the discussion on the poker table. But it's never more apparent, and this is probably true with every topic these days, right? As we get more and more people on this amazing planet of ours, is that how everything is a spectrum. It's not black and white. We were born thinking everything is black and white, and even race, right? Black and white. Like, oh my God. Like, no, everything's just a fucking spectrum. Like and we're all so different. And like, you're saying this woman seems very man-like qualities. Like, well, maybe she's on the spectrum, in the man side, but she's officially a woman, like it makes it really, really hard, because that is true. I was thinking, even when you just said that about this woman, she seems, how about, Serena Williams, a fucking beast. Like, her muscle strength,
but she's just physically superior to women.
But that's what I'm saying. She's a beautiful girl. Had people said, oh, of course she's a beautiful girl. I'm not saying you're ugly. I'm saying
I'm saying like, but she's actually a feminine woman. She just happens to be a larger woman. The woman I'm talking about literally kind of could pass for a man.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing, is that, so that's what makes this really hard. Is number one, I think first we have to accept the idea that, like, we're trying to accept it by calling out every specific change in gender, where his, her, they like whatever, you can be whatever you want. The hard part is, like, number one, first accepting that for everybody. And I think we're only at that point, like, number one, accepting that gender is a spectrum. Once we accept that, I think then we can start to, like, yeah, how do we figure out, how do we make this a world in which, we can play sports all together? Like, at some point, maybe it actually just evens out on its own, right? Like, who knows? Like, but it is a very interesting debate right now. Are you even paying attention? Are you looking at your stocks right now?
I am looking at you, and I'm just like, okay, that's
okay. So apparently we're done.
No, I'm just like, I think that take you have on it is so broad. It's just, and
it is broad.
And I'm kind of hoping and wanting you to, like,
you want me to give
it, but I have an
my answer
brain,
right now.
so.
Okay, I will tell you, if I had to decide right now, I would say that no transgender people born men and then become women would not be allowed to compete against women in women's sports. If I had to choose right now, I had to say, like, put my foot down, that's it. That's what I would say right now. I don't know if that's the answer long term. I have a feeling it's going to shift and there's going to be a better way. But if I had to say it today and I was a lawmaker and you put me, like, that's what I would do. And yeah, would it make transgender people mad and families disappointed? Yes. What can they do? I don't fucking know. Like, we have to start our own league. Yes, sir, in the back.
I would just like to say, that the views expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect the views of both hosts.
Okay. What would you say then, right now? If you had to decide right now, what would you say?
Whatever makes everybody happy.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Okay, fine. I won't straddle the line on it. I'll tell you exactly what I think. I feel similarly to you. I feel that people that are born biologically male that transition to female at some point in their life probably should be prohibited against competing against other females because there's an obvious physical advantage. And so that is the only way, or I should say, that is the only area of life that I can think of that I would say needs to be scrutinized by the powers that be, and probably not, you probably shouldn't have just a full board, carte blanche entry into the world of the opposite sex, or what was the opposite sex for you, just because you made your transition, because it just makes it so difficult for those who want to compete and just quite simply just don't necessarily have that same physical advantage that you may or may not have. And please, for those who are possibly transgender listening to this program or whatever, understand just from me, and this is my personal view, God bless you. I hope that your life is everything that you want it to be. And I'm not trying to be diplomatic when saying that. I really believe that, like, everybody should have the same human rights. If we're talking about gay marriage, if we're talking about transgender, so forth and so on, I believe in just basic human rights. But if we're talking about something specific like sport, then I think we all just want to see, a level playing field. And maybe I just don't know enough medically. Maybe there's some information that someone can share with us. Highly uncircumcised@gmail.com. I would love to read whatever it is you have to say, because if you can educate me further, I don't mind that at all. But as far as I understand, it's just not a level playing field in one direction. Now, those who are born female that transition to male, hey, if you can get out there with the men and do your thing, and the coach or whoever's picking people for their particular team wants to, take a shot, hey, I'm all for it. And God bless you. I hope you crush. But those who are born male and transition to female, I cannot in my mind resolve what I feel is the huge issue of a physical bias. So that's what I think.
I think we'll probably get into it more later too, but because it made me think of, what if we have teams that are just all not gender specific in the future? What if it's just men and women together?
That doesn't work.
Who said it doesn't work?
Because men are physically.
No, but if they're all on, if you have the same amount of, like, if you have men and women all on the team together, they have to work together. They got to figure it out.
Well, if you're saying like we should start a co-ed basketball league,
that's what I'm saying.
Right?
Like, what if everything is just co-ed in the future? What if it goes that way and we all come together? Did you see that? How we did that? See this spectrum, and it's just boop, just a big circle, boop, just like that.
Do you remember in a past episode of ours, I said sometimes, Nicole, you just have these ideas that just drain the very energy from my cells.
Life-changing is what you mean. Life-changing ideas.
You know what I'm thinking right now? You need a picture of me behind you on that mantle somewhere. I don't see any Black people on that mantle. I don't see anyone that looks like me. I
don't see anything in your room, Mr. Blur. So shut the hell up. Listen.
You know why I blur it? Because that everything behind me is a huge picture of you, and I just didn't want you to know.
Not. No, it is not.
It's a life-size picture of you.
All that's on the mantle is a picture of me and my kids. How cute are they? Can you see them? They're so cute. Like,
whatever.
Right there where I see anyways, I digress.
Put me right in between there. Just a big picture of me going.
Okay. One of these days. Let's leave it here for now and see what comments we get, and we can take the discussion further again. But I don't think it's a bad idea to have co-ed team. We'll talk about that later. talk about it later.
Well, let's do everything you want to do.
Okay, that sounds good.
That was not the response I was expecting, but okay.
Okay. For Michael Moore, I'm Nicole Jurgens. This has been a highly uncircumcised conversation. We'll see you next time.